Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Imagine finding out your company's deepest financial data was compromised.
Always a terrifying thought.
Right. But not because a team of, sophisticated hackers breached your main servers, but because a minor software vendor you forgot you even hired 3 years ago got breached.
Yeah, the classic third-party vulnerability.
Exactly. And that exact scenario is playing out across the globe right now.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone navigating the current business landscape, there is this massive underlying tension.
Oh, absolutely.
On one hand, you have the dizzying speed of AI evolution. New capabilities, new vendors, they drop seemingly every single week.
It's relentless.
It really is. And then on the other hand, you have the way a lot of businesses actually track the risks associated with those rapid changes. And, well, spoiler alert, it was often not fast at all.
Not even close.
Right. We still see endless email chains, manual data entry, and quarterly reports that are literally outdated the second someone hits send.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are dealing with a severe mismatch in speed.
We really are. The psychology behind using a manual spreadsheet is actually fascinating. A spreadsheet gives you the illusion of total control, because the numbers stay exactly where you type them.
Right, they don't move unless you move them.
Exactly. But business is not static. You cannot manage real-time, lightning-fast AI threats with tools that belong in, like, the early 2000s. And that is the mission for this deep dive.
A very critical mission.
We are exploring a highly comprehensive guide from smartkeys.org. It's written by Felix Römer, and it's titled Automation Risk Assessment: Identifying Jobs Vulnerable to AI.
And this is a mission that really dictates whether an organization scales or just completely stalls out. What Felix Römer outlines here is a strategic blueprint for the modern professional.
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it.
The whole goal of our discussion today is to equip you, the listener, with a practical workflow. You need to know how to spot exactly which job tasks are exposed to AI, how to pull your scattered data into one place, and, how to protect your daily operations and your workforce.
Because the stakes are incredibly high right now.
They are. The organizations that are currently pulling ahead, they're the ones making staffing, training, and security decisions based on continuous centralized signals. They have totally abandoned the gut feelings in those archaic quarter-end reviews.
It's a fundamental shift in how we observe risk. And I kind of want to replace a common tired analogy here, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
We often hear people compare this shift to switching from a printed paper map to a real-time GPS. You get rerouted around traffic and hazards.
Right, the standard tech analogy.
Yeah, but I think it's much deeper than just navigating a road trip. Think of traditional spreadsheet-based risk management, like taking a single photograph of a bank vault once a year.
Oh, wow.
You look at the photo, you confirm the door's locked,
Mhm.
and you just assume it stays locked for the next 12 months.
Which is wild when you think about it.
Totally. But moving to these new always-on software systems is like installing thermal cameras, motion sensors, and like real-time biometric scanners in that exact same vault.
Yeah, you're constantly watching.
Exactly. It actively alerts you the second the temperature changes, or if a window is left open in the middle of the night. It's really about understanding the mechanism of continuous monitoring.
And those mechanics are exactly what make the difference. The source material points to this massive migration of data into central platforms. We're talking about tools like Vanta and Sprinto.
Right, I hear those names constantly now.
Yeah, and for good reason. These tools do not just ask you to manually input your security status. That would defeat the purpose. They utilize API hooks application programming interfaces to plug directly into your company's infrastructure.
So they're physically reading the systems.
Exactly. They're constantly reading the configuration state of your cloud servers, your employee access logs, your active vendors. I mean, if a developer accidentally changes a database setting from private to public, the software doesn't wait for a quarterly audit to catch it.
Right, because a quarter is an eternity.
Exactly. It runs a rule check and triggers an alarm instantly.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Because the word audit usually sends a shiver down, well, any compliance officer's spine.
Oh, for sure. Panic mode.
Right. But these platforms are essentially pulling double duty. They find that exposed window, but they also log the evidence that you actually went and closed it.
What's fascinating here is how this transforms chaotic, siloed practices into mathematically defensible governance. These systems gather evidence continuously, and they map it directly to major compliance frameworks.
Right, like the alphabet soup of compliance.
Yeah, exactly. We hear acronyms like SOC2 or ISO 27001 or HIPAA thrown around constantly. But what those frameworks actually require is undeniable proof.
You can't just say you're doing it.
Right. SOC2, for instance, requires you to prove to your customers that you have strict access controls and background checks in place to protect their data.
So no more scrambling at the last minute.
Exactly. Instead of a compliance officer scrambling for 3 weeks, taking hundreds of screenshots of settings to prove to an auditor that only authorized people access to database, the platform has been attaching those digital artifacts automatically, every single day.
So executives and auditors can actually trust the dashboard as they're looking at.
Absolutely.
But, okay, knowing the software exists is one thing. Actually executing an automation risk assessment from scratch is an entirely different beast.
It is a process, yeah.
I mean, a business cannot just flip a switch and monitor everything on day one. So where do the actual mechanics of this assessment begin?
Well, Felix Römer's guide is very deliberate about this. You have to define a narrow scope. You start small.
Okay, that makes sense.
You map the people, the processes, and the systems that sustain your most critical operations first. And to avoid all that manual data entry we talked about, you integrate the central nervous system of your business.
Meaning what, exactly?
You pull from your HRIS, your Human Resources Information System. And this isn't just an employee directory. It contains your structural org charts, reporting lines, and detailed job descriptions.
Okay, so you get the human structure.
Right. Then you connect your ticketing systems like Jira, which show the actual daily workflow and where the historical bottlenecks are. And finally, you pull from your finance systems to understand the monetary value attached to those processes.
Wait, okay, I need to push back hard on this methodology for a second.
All right, let's hear it.
If we integrate all these systems and just let a centralized software platform do the heavy lifting of scoring the risks, aren't we just blindly automating our automation strategy?
I see where you're going.
Right. I mean, if the algorithm is deciding which human tasks the algorithm can replace, we are creating a massive feedback loop of blind spots.
Yeah.
How do we actually know which human tasks are vulnerable? And how do we know the system isn't just hallucinating its own usefulness?
That is a completely fair point, and I see why you'd assume the software just takes the wheel entirely. But that is a common trap the methodology explicitly avoids.
Okay, how so?
You do not let the software guess. The assessment requires a very rigorous human-driven mapping phase first. You must manually link specific, granular job tasks to exact AI capabilities.
So you don't just say, AI can do HR now.
Exactly. You cannot just look at a dashboard and say, AI can handle accounting. That is way too broad. You have to break the job down into its component tasks.
Okay, give me an example of what that looks like.
Sure. Think about extracting invoice data from a PDF. That task maps to a specific AI capability called computer vision, and it is highly vulnerable to automation.
Right, a machine could do that easily.
But then think about disputing a complex vendor charge over the phone because the invoice was wrong. That requires human negotiation, nuance, and relationship management.
Which a machine cannot do well.
Exactly. That task is highly resistant to automation. You separate the standardizable tasks from the nuanced judgment calls before the software ever touches a score.
I see. So you are evaluating the structural vulnerability of the task itself, not the job title on the business card.
Precisely.
But how does the actual math of that scoring model work? Because in the source, I hear terms like risk modifiers, and honestly, it sounds a bit opaque. How does a modifier mathematically change a risk profile?
It's actually a really elegant formula once you break it down. You start by establishing a base risk score. You multiply the likelihood of an AI tool automating the task by the business impact if that automation fails or hallucinates.
Okay, so likelihood times impact.
Right. So high likelihood multiplied by high impact gives you a severe base score. But then you apply those modifiers, which act as mathematical multipliers that reduce or increase that number based on your actual defenses.
Okay, so what's an example of a modifier?
One modifier is detectability. Basically, how fast would we spot an error if the AI messed up? Another is control strength.
Okay, how does control strength work in the math?
If you have a strong automated secondary check on that AI output, that control strength modifier might multiply your base score by 0.2, drastically shrinking the final number. It lowers the risk.
Oh, I get it, because the control is strong.
Exactly. But if your control is just, a human glancing at a spreadsheet once a week, the modifier might be 0.9, leaving the risk incredibly high. It turns a totally subjective feeling into a verifiable, repeatable metric.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because everything we just discussed, the mapping, the math, the modifiers, that is all internal.
Right, our own system.
We are organizing our own house, scoring our own data. but you are only as secure as the weakest link in your supply chain.
And that supply chain is massive these days.
It is. And there's a statistic in the source material that just demands attention. In 2024, half of businesses ended a vendor relationship over security concerns. 50%.
That is a staggering number.
It really is. That is a massive disruption to daily operations, simply because a third party could not keep their infrastructure secure.
And that proves why the external landscape is incredibly volatile. If your risk assessment only looks inward, you are missing literally half the threat matrix.
Which defeats the purpose of the assessment.
Exactly. Think about a marketing agency you hire to run email campaigns. They require access to a slice of your customer database, right?
Right, to send the emails.
If their security protocols are weak, your customer's data is exposed. You did not get hacked. Your vendor did. And this is exactly why automated vendor tiering is non-negotiable.
So how does the tiering actually work?
The platform evaluates the vendor's data sensitivity, their access scope, and the maturity of their own security controls. Then it assigns them a risk tier immediately.
And the business value there, the real so what, is speed. Procurement teams usually spend weeks sending these massive Excel questionnaires back and forth to assess a vendor.
Oh, it's painful.
It is. But automated tiering does all that heavy lifting. You know, instantly if a new software tool needs a deep dive security review or if it can just be safely integrated by Friday.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of corporate governance, applying external frameworks becomes the anchor for the speed. The guide emphasizes NIST SP 800-137.
NIST SP 800-137. Rolls right off the tongue.
I know, it sounds like a barcode on a soup can.
Yeah.
But it is a critical government-backed framework designed specifically for information security continuous monitoring.
Okay, so what does it actually mandate?
It shifts an organization from a mindset of just compliance, checking boxes once a year for an auditor, to a mindset of ongoing awareness. It dictates how you establish digital tripwires across your internal systems and your vendors.
Tripwires. I like that visual.
Yeah, it ensures that when an alarm goes off, it is routed directly to a specific human owner rather than just disappearing into some generic shared inbox that nobody checks.
Which brings up the issue of measuring success. I mean, having tripwires is completely useless if nobody reacts when they snap.
Exactly.
So how do we prove to an executive board that this continuous monitoring program is actually reducing our vulnerability?
You measure the program's health through key risk indicators, specifically MTTC, which is mean time to detect, and MTTR, mean time to respond. You really have to understand the clock for these metrics.
Okay, how does the clock work?
The detect clock starts the exact millisecond an unauthorized user tries to pull data or a system deviates from its baseline. In a traditional manual spreadsheet culture, that clock might tick for 6 months until an auditor spots an anomaly in a log file.
6 months of exposure? That's terrifying.
It is. But with API-driven monitoring, MTTC drops to seconds. And then the respond clock measures how long it takes to actually neutralize that threat.
And this is where the system takes action on its own, correct? Like, we aren't just sending an automated email to a network admin who might be asleep at 2 a.m.
Precisely. To really compress the MTTR timeline, you design automated actions.
Give me an example of an action.
Let's say the machine learning model spots a suspicious login attempt from a new geographic location, and it's targeting a critical vendor integration. A script can instantly quarantine that server, pause the third-party connection, and enforce a mandatory password reset.
Wow. So the response clock literally stops in minutes.
Yes. That compression of time drastically shrinks your window of residual exposure.
So what does this all mean? We have dug really deep into APIs, mathematical modifiers, automated tripwires, and stopping threats in seconds. Let's bring this back to the core engine of any business.
The people.
Yes, the people. We are using these models to map out which standardizable tasks are highly vulnerable to automation. What is the concrete strategy for protecting the workforce and the operations when the ground under them is shifting this fast?
It's the most important question because the analytics and the software, they're merely the lenses. The actual value is how management acts on what they see.
Right, the tools don't manage the company.
Exactly. But before an organization can confidently change hiring plans or operations, they have to confront the fragility of their own data. We discussed the HRIS integration earlier, right?
Pulling the org charts.
A massive operational gap occurs through what's called model drift or just poor data hygiene. If your HR system lists an employee's role as account exec, but your ticketing system labels them sales, the automated model might evaluate them as two completely different risk profiles.
Oh man, so it double counts them or misscores them.
Exactly. Bad data inputs will violently distort those executive dashboards we talked about. It
Mm.
is the classic garbage in, garbage out dilemma. But now it is happening at the speed of an API call.
Which means the maintenance never actually stops.
Mhm.
You have to constantly normalize the data fields, backtest the scoring models against real-world incidents, and verify that your modifiers are still accurate. You
Yes,
essentially have to actively police the system.
you do. And this raises a really important point regarding the absolute limits of software. We cannot let the pursuit of speed override essential governance.
Right, because fast mistakes are still mistakes.
Exactly. There are complex scenarios where automation must hard stop and a human must step in. You have to clearly define escalation rules for situations involving ethics, legal nuance, and strategic trade-offs.
What's a scenario where a human absolutely has to take over?
For example, an AI might accurately flag a massive, unusual financial transaction based on standard risk parameters. It did its job. But deciding whether to automatically freeze the account of your company's most vital client?
Oh yeah, that could ruin a relationship instantly.
Right. That requires relational context and legal consideration. Human oversight must remain in the loop with simple, manual override flows. The balance between machine speed and human judgment is what truly protects operations.
It sounds like human judgment becomes the premium skill here. AI is coming for the repetitive tasks, sure, but it is also reshaping the job architecture itself.
That's exactly it.
And the guide lays out a highly pragmatic playbook for this transition. As you use the scoring model to identify standardizable tasks, you don't just lay people off. You translate those exposure scores into targeted reskilling paths.
Yeah, you essentially use the centralized risk register as your workforce roadmap. When the continuous monitoring identifies a department with high AI exposure, say manual data processing, you proactively design training that pivots those employees toward judgment-heavy cross-functional roles.
So you're upgrading their skill sets before the task disappears.
Exactly. You collaborate with HR to rewrite job descriptions. And the critical step here is communicating this directly to the teams.
Transparency is key.
It is. They need to understand that the system is taking over the extraction and assembly of data, so their new mandate is overseeing the quality of that data and managing the complex exceptions. Staffing decisions must move in lockstep with the risk assessment.
For the listener who is sitting there thinking, this sounds totally necessary but completely overwhelming for a large organization, Felix Römer provides the ultimate practical takeaway. Do not attempt to boil the ocean.
Best advice in the guide, honestly.
Yeah. You do not need to wire up your entire global enterprise by next week. The strategy is to construct a staved rollout. You define a focused 4 to 8 week pilot program.
Keep it tight and manageable.
Right. You select a single department or just a handful of high-impact roles. You connect the HRIS and JIRA feeds just for that small scope, run the mathematical scoring models, and build out a localized dashboard.
You prove the value right there.
Exactly. You demonstrate the efficiency gains, the compressed detection times, and those defensible compliance logs to the executive team. Once you have a measurable baseline, then you iterate and scale the program with confidence.
Because the pilot proves the concept without halting daily operations. And as you scale from that single department to the entire enterprise, you maintain absolute focus on governance.
Which means assigning owners to everything?
Yes. You ensure leadership is aligned, every flagged risk is assigned a specific human owner, and all the digital evidence maps continuously back to frameworks like SOC2 and the NIST guidelines. We are fundamentally moving from looking backward at what broke last quarter to looking forward and systematically predicting where the pressure points will be tomorrow.
It is a complete paradigm shift in corporate architecture.
It really is. And as we conclude, I want to leave you with a thought regarding the future of work itself.
All right, let's hear it.
If an organization successfully navigates this transition, meaning if AI is deployed correctly as a high-speed decision support tool rather than just some crude mechanism for human replacement, how will the very definition of expertise in your industry change in the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a great question.
If these connected systems can instantly provide the correct answers to standard complex problems, will the market still value the answers a human provides? Or will the new premium, the true marker of expertise, be placed entirely on the quality of the questions you are able to ask the system?
Valuing the inquiry over the output. That is a profound concept to evaluate as you look at your own daily tasks and the structure of your team. We want to thank you so much for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast.
Yes, thank you for listening.
We highly encourage you to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a deep dive into the strategies shaping the modern landscape. And if you want to explore the mathematical scoring models, the API integration strategies, and the full methodology we unpacked today, please read Felix Römer's complete article.
It's an incredible resource.
It really is. You can find the direct link waiting for you right in the show notes.
It has been a real privilege breaking down these mechanics with you. Continue to monitor your signals, ensure you keep human judgment in the loop, and stay ahead of the curve.
Until next time, keep asking the right questions. Take care.